Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second in a series of webinars sponsored by Van Rath. Today, we're looking at stress management and managing your growth mindset. We have a really full schedule today with some great speakers. We have Dee France from the Chartered Accountants Ireland, who's popping on just to give us a little bit of a briefing as to what CA supports can be offered to us. And also then we have Sinead Willox with us, who is a lawyer and also a certified life coach and mindfulness practitioner. At the end of this session with Sinead, we will have a quick Q&A. So just a reminder to use the chat function throughout, and I'll try and get to those questions then at the end. So without further ado, as we have a busy schedule, I'll hand you over to our sponsor, Van Rath, for a few words. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Henry here from Van Rath. We're absolutely delighted to be part of the partnership with this series. So over the previous and coming events. Obviously, Van Rath, we very much work with young professionals right through to the most senior roles within finance and other sectors as well. So we have a long-standing partnership with the Institute. And we're absolutely delighted to be part of this series. It's a fascinating value add for all the members. So I'll not keep any longer because I know that the schedule is busy. So I'll hand you over to Dee. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Henry. I'm just going to share my screen quickly here. Great to be here. I'm delighted to be able to pop in and say a quick hello to this audience in particular, to Northern Ireland and the young professionals. I just really wanted to let you know about a service that's available through the Institute, which is completely free of charge. And I just think when we're dealing with wellbeing topics and certainly stress management, you know, they're kind of very charged and they can be difficult for people. So there is help at hand. And so if you come away from this webinar and you go, right, I want to do something different, or I want to get some support, this is where you can go. The new Thrive Wellbeing Hub that's been launched back in November. So if you have a look here at this next slide, so this is how we kind of imagine the life cycle of all of our students and obviously all of our members as well. Lots of pain points along the way, obviously sort of exam stress for the students, but then as you get into your career, there can be all these kind of family issues, or you can have a curveball thrown at you, and you might lose somebody close to you, you might have some a bereavement, obviously, or a kind of a marriage, a difficult marriage, or lots and lots of things that can happen to you along the way. And really, we're here for that. These are obviously all kind of components of stress, and can drive up that stress along with the kind of the professional day job as well. So these are just kind of some of the kind of highline services that we offer to you. So you might just engage with us initially for a chat, an informal chat, which is 100% confidential. And then we might triage out some of the issues that you're having to a professional counsellor, and you can avail of 8 sessions there completely free of charge. You might come back then in-house to the Thrive team and have some wellness coaching around maybe some kind of lifestyle issues that you're having problems with. Indeed, wellness coaching can involve stress management and, you know, maybe some of the kind of, you know, sleep hygiene or nutrition or fitness, those kind of issues, and we work through a program for you. We have a dedicated team there to do all that, and we have lots of events as well, a dedicated website with 300 pages of content that is updated very regularly, and we reach all of the members and the students through the usual channels there. Just mentioning those webinars, you might recognize some of the faces here. Indeed, you might have been along to some of the events very similar to this. So you can keep an eye on the live calendar there on the hub, and just simply click and register for any of the events that are coming up. And this is where you'll find us on the Institute website. So it's just Thrive Wellbeing Hub on, as I say, from the main page. So look, don't be a stranger. If there's anything at all that's piqued your interest there, please do get in contact with us. And I'm going to hand you over now to the main event. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Sinead Willox, and I am a solicitor and advocate here in PA Duffy in Dungannon. I'm also a certified life coach and a mindfulness practitioner. I'm just going to share my screen, if you just give me a moment, and I can start my presentation. So first and foremost, folks, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background in relation to me and my own particular journey, and why I have a real passion and interest in mental health and in stress management. and obviously being aware fully of when we find ourselves in positions that we need a little bit of assistance and we need a little bit of help. I moved to, brought up and born and bred in Northern Ireland, and moved to London when I was 18. I trained there as a young professional. I trained at the College of Law in Guildford, and then through that I went on and worked for a local firm. After 3 years, obviously it was very, very career driven, and after 3 years I was then made partner of that law firm. I opened new offices. We were extremely successful. I got married, and then I was blessed with twins, effectively. Everything kind of changed after the twins were born. I found myself very much a perfectionist, and I found myself in a position really where I was quite burnt out. I wasn't really taking care of myself properly. And I found that I wasn't really, the stress indicators were definitely there at that juncture, but I wasn't actually aware mentally that was what was going on with my body. In 2018, I left law for a little while. I gave up the partnership, and I effectively retrained as a mindfulness coach and a wellness coach. And I also undertook a program, a neuro-linguistic program, and it was amazing because it was a complete different journey for me. But I took it all on board, and since that date, I've given a number of talks to corporate sponsors, etc., in relation to this particular field. More evidently and more recently, there's a lot more awareness around mental health, around stress management. There are lots of facilities now in place to support people, but certainly at that time I felt quite isolated. Wasn't really too sure what was going on. Of course, it wasn't until I began to educate myself in relation to this particular area that things unfolded, and the more you opened up about it, the more you realised that a lot of people were finding themselves in similar scenarios, and then it's effectively trying to get coping strategies in place that you don't get into that particularly dark hole, if you like. But that's a little bit about me. I suppose first and foremost, the most important lesson is that of self-care, and you can't often pour from an empty cup. You must fill your own cup fully. It's very, very important to recharge, to reconnect, and to get yourself back on track where you feel grounded, and in a position that you can take on whatever you want. Really, a lot of people ask me, what is stress and how does that manifest itself? And obviously, stress can be defined as any time of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological change. So it's effectively your body's response to anything that requires change. As often said, the body can often show signs that we would be completely oblivious to in our mind. And sometimes this can be very, very difficult to identify what these signs are, particularly within the roles that you are all in, and you find yourself very much as a problem solver, results driven and solution based. And what I want you to take away from today is really what there is that there's a stress scale, and at the bottom end of that, at 1 on that scale, we can be totally chilled out. And then at number 10, we are completely stressed to the max. You really want yourself to be, around the halfway point in that. And the reason being that, we thrive effectively from optimal stress. It's productive, and it's good. It's what gets us, going. But Obviously, when there is a catalogue of events, or if you're suffering stress for a particularly long time, it can be difficult then to actually identify. And what we'll find is maybe some form of you want to explode, or you want to maybe vent out in a way that's not productive to you, and potentially self-destructive to you. My mantra in relation to stress and the indicators of it is that knowledge is complete power. So when we are, fully aware of how we're feeling, of what's going on, that is effectively the power that we have to, if we have to bring ourselves back on our stress scale, or ground ourselves in some particular way. I'll come on to this in a little minute, but the second part of that is actually acceptance. And acceptance of where we are. It's very important in life, in our professional lives, in our personal lives, that we accept that we can't change what has happened, whatever scenario or however difficult it is that we find ourselves in. We can't change what has happened. We can't change what will happen. We can only deal with where we're at in this particular moment, in time. And that, that is effectively where mindfulness and the mindfulness-based stress reduction can come into play, and something that you can benefit from in order to reduce that. How best then can you manage your stress levels? And one is finding what best works for you. I often use this analogy that you have on screen at the moment, and if you use the analogy of you're steering your own ship or paddling your own canoe, or whatever terminology, lots of people have different ways in which to do it. But if you down the side you have oar, and you are in control of certain aspects of your life, of where you're at and where you're going. You're also not in control of a lot of things. So we don't have control over, some traumatic events, the pandemic as an example, a grief scenario. There are certain events that we cannot control, and each of every one of us here today will have challenges that we don't know how to deal with necessarily, but it's how really we react to those, and how we deal with it in the present moment. And we can only take one step at a time, and one day at a time, and 1 minute at a time. But I often use this analogy about playing above the line, and above the line is you have your ownership, you own it, you're accountable, and what you're responsible for. That is the only thing that we can do, to the best of our ability. Ownership, accountability, and responsibility. Playing below the line, if you like, and I always take an example of that where I can't do this because I don't know, I'm too tired. Someone didn't do a certain thing. The blame, excuses, and denial. It's playing below the line, and we're always going to feel better on our stress management scale when we accept what our ownership is, who we're accountable to, and what we're responsible for, rather than blame, denial, and excuses. So how can you manage stress? As I've already indicated, each and every one of us will have a different way of dealing with stress, and you have to ensure that you do what works for you. What I'm going to delve into now by way of mindfulness and mindfulness-based stress reduction is something that has really worked for me. You can take away with it, what you want. It may not work for you. You may not believe in it. There may be other things that you can find to release, and the certain levels, any stress levels. But this is certainly something that has worked for me, and I can fully say that I am a completely different person about how I react to things in light of the practices that I take on board on a daily basis. You obviously have to protect your mind. You have to protect what's going on, and sometimes recharge, just cut off completely, where you're not on social media. There's so much at present by way of interactions and you know, even news and negativity. It's just important that when we need to recharge, that we're able to take that time to do it. And it's not selfish in any way. It's ensuring that you're able to do that, and to do that on your own without any judgment. Before I speak briefly in relation to mindfulness, I just wanted to touch upon how the brain effectively works and how the mind works, and how effectively it is there to protect us. If we think about many years ago, you know, we have a flight or fight or flight response, and that is really there as a survival kit to protect us. So if you think of your mind like an iceberg, and up above the iceberg is your conscious mind. Okay, so we have positive thoughts, we have negative thoughts, we have memories, and we have beliefs. So we've got 10%, which is our conscious mind. And this is really what's always available to us: our willpower, our decision making, and our logical thinking. You kind of want that person to be in charge in your meetings, and you want that person to be present. It's very, you know, it's logical. Beneath that, then we have 50%. Which is a subconscious mind, and that's really data that you have to dig to access. You might have recurring thoughts, behaviours, habits, and feelings, and recent memories. Underneath that again, so if we can split that, it's 40% of your unconscious mind, and these are basically memories, beliefs, and habits from the age of 0 to 7. Some of us may have, you know, traumatic stored events there. It's really information that has been kept hidden, locked, and sometimes it's a real, you know, there can be a real resistance to change there that you're not particularly aware of, but that's, you know, kind of buried deep down. So if I talk to you in relation to, you know, your what mindfulness is and how it effectively slows down the process and slows down your thought process, allowing you, if, for example, you may have some negative thoughts coming into your head. So the premise of mindfulness, and people always ask, what is it if they're not sure what it is? But it is the awareness or energy that arises when we pay attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. And that's from John Kabat-Zinn. I always add to this because I think there has to be a level of, you know, it has to be with kindness and also self-compassion. And the reason that I say this is I'm sure all of you have noticed that sometimes we have this imposter syndrome that comes into play, and, you know, we may be self-critical, we're, you know, criticizing ourselves. I like to call my little inner critic a name. She's called Geraldine, but I often put her in the back seat and tell her that I'm not going to listen to her today, you know. But it's certainly that we're being kind and we're being compassionate with ourselves. This is effectively my, you know, how I view mindfulness and how it has helped me. But by taking the stance of suffering. So if we're suffering in some form, it's caused by wanting things to be different than they actually are. And if we go back to our, you know, stress indicators and what that is, knowledge is obviously power, but one is being aware, awareness, and 2 is acceptance of where we are in this particular moment at this particular time, without judgment. We can't change what has happened. We can't change what will happen. We can only deal with what's on our plate at this particular time. If we deal, with the iceberg, and you take that premise of the mind being, so we have 10%, 10% and 90%, what's underneath and what's up above, so what other people will see. If you take anything away today from the stress management webinar, I would ask you to remember this particular slide. And this is very much about your reaction. So you can control what you can control. You can control your emotions, but most importantly, you can control how you react to a certain set of circumstances. And it's that reaction, in my particular opinion, that gives you what your outcome is. So if we have an event, and I'll use a couple of little examples for you to break it down. You have an event, you then have your reaction, that effectively gives you what your outcome is. And I often say that it's 10% to 90% to 100%. Charles Orwin Swindle had a little quote, and it said, "Life is 10% of what happens to us and 90% of how we react to it." Classic analogy in relation to that is, maybe your boss at work or someone in work says something to you. You take that very sensitively, and it may be that it's justified that you take it sensitively, but you speak to other work colleagues, explain to them what has happened. You then go home, you'll vent off to your husband, partner, call a friend, tell everyone. But how you're reacting and how you're reliving that particular event will give you what your outcome is. 9 times out of 10, we don't direct it directly at source, which causes even more stress. But it's just really important to acknowledge and to take away from this, that your reaction to many scenarios will determine how you're feeling and what the outcome is. And that's what you have to work on. That's what mindfulness teaches us. And then if we talk about, the particular brain, or inside the brain, you have a prefrontal cortex. And meditation, prefrontal cortex is the type of one. I used to talk about the 10%, the logical side of the brain. That's what gets us, that's what gets us stressed. That's what releases certain chemicals into our brain. What mindfulness does, if you're stressed for a long period of time, that prefrontal cortex is actually reducing. What meditation does and mindfulness does, it thickens that. So it allows us to take the time to reconnect, to recharge, and actually to calm. My suggestion to you all would be to do some meditation on a daily basis. I do it first thing in the morning. I do it last thing at night. My children do it just with their own little anxieties and their own little worries, and it really slows down that reaction. But if I'm finding myself stressed at 8 to 10, you're bringing it right back down to the middle. I just want to talk a little in relation to your thought processes and how you can interject those thought processes with positive if you're having negative thoughts effectively. Some scientists will state that you have about an average of 70,000 thoughts per day. It's quite it's quite a lot of thoughts that are going through our little heads. But those thoughts might be particularly in your line of work, where there's no error for any failure, there's no error for getting things wrong, and we may start like an avalanche of if we're working towards a particular deadline, and the thought of, I'm not going to get it done, I don't know how to do it, and it builds and builds and builds, and the stressors then go from 1 to 10. It's interjecting those, or what I like to call pivoting, and we can pivot our particular thought processes by, rather than a negative, know that we're doing it. But what I mean by pivoting is just simply to stop that thought process and interject it with a more positive, an affirmation, or "you got this, girl," whatever it is. You're actually talking to your inner critic, or just letting it sit in the back seat. Say, "Geraldine, have have a little seat in there in the back. I'm not listening to you today. Obviously, we all do this, and we all have a tendency to do it, but overthinking and overanalyzing, you know, everything, it's really back to that, you know, it's really back to that reaction about how we're dealing with things. It is obviously the biggest cause of unhappiness. If, you know, one of my mantras is that thoughts are not facts. Take that home with you as well. Thoughts are not facts. And then you can do like a little, you know, write it out or journal it out if you feel yourself being stressed. You know, maybe a client wants something, you know, done particularly. It's you know, what are the facts of this, and what are, you know, what are my thoughts letting myself get away with if I'm feeling stressed about it, and then how can I do it logically, you know, break it down. How can I do this, you know, this particular task if that's something that's coming up. I often say the 4 C's of mental toughness, and obviously it's, you know, first and foremost in relation to what we can control. I've indicated to you already that we can control our emotions. We can control our thought processes, and it's ensuring that you know who's in the driving seat. If these stressors become, you know, increasingly on a scale, that you know that you can take a little step back, look objectively at what's going on and control the situation. You are in the driving seat of your own affairs and where you're going and where you want to be. It's okay to say no sometimes if we don't feel, you know, if we feel overwhelmed, but it's really being aware that if there is something wrong, that you're aware of it. Obviously, commitment, that you do have the commitment to follow things through. And the second two are challenge. We all, it's good to be challenged, you know, and it's good for some of the stresses to allow themselves to come in there optimal. And obviously then to have the confidence again to follow those through. Lots of people would say, you know, making sure that you set your goals, that you know where you're at with that. And ensuring that you do feel, you know, you do feel confident moving forward. In relation to mindset, and certainly this builds on from you know, your mindfulness work and reducing stress in a particular area, but it's also, you know, building resilience and confidence in both our personal and our professional lives. So you can replace negative thoughts with more positive ones, more realistic thoughts as well. You do have control over your emotions, so your emotions don't control you, and you can take positive action. And I know Dee Francis already indicated, you know, that there is a lot of support networks there that are there if you aren't feeling the best. There is so much literature, there is so much education around stress management at present, and the more you'll find, like, you know, the more that you open up to other people if there are difficulties, the more that they're there to assist you and help you if there are any issues that you need to resolve. It's funny sometimes, you know, when we show our authenticity and show our vulnerability, you'll find that a lot of people, you know, have struggles. They find themselves, you know, just the challenges of life, even in their professional careers. There might be something that you're not 100% sure of, and sometimes even just, you know, talking on a communication level to other people and voicing that out can be the medicine that you require. That, you know, you're not alone. You don't have to figure this all out. You don't have to figure everything out on your own. And I want to do a little. It's just a little technique that I have, and it's like a 3-step breathing technique, and it's really just to show you how quickly you can, if your scale is at a scale of 10, but how quickly you can use this little technique to bring yourself right back down, and to be grounded if you find that you're overwhelmed or suffering anxiety. I like to think as the meditation and the mindfulness. I talk about the breath and how the breath is an anchor, and if we aren't feeling the best, we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, we can simply tap in to our breath in order to feel more relaxed. What I want you to do now is simply to put your hands put your hands wherever you feel comfortable, on the tops of your thighs. I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to do a counting technique. We're going to breathe in through our nose for 4. We're then going to hold that breath whilst I count to 8, and we're then going to release that for 8. When you release, if you could release through your mouth. So in through your nose for 4, hold then for 8, and then release through your mouth for 8. And I simply want to do that 3 times, okay? And if you can just start now and close your eyes, okay? So we're going to count in through your nose, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and release through your mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In through your nose, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and release through your mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in through your nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Release through your mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I just want you to take a little moment. Be aware of how you feel. And I'm hoping that you feel a little bit more relaxed. And just know, in the power of that simple exercise, which can be done anywhere. You go to the bathroom, anywhere at all. But if you're just not feeling a little bit overwhelmed, your scale indicators are getting up, it is a very, very simple exercise to do, to simply take time, 3-step breathing technique, and get yourself grounded again. I'm just going to get one little thing, apologies. So folks, this is just something as well that I want you to take away from today. We've got ERO, we've got mindfulness, we've got what our reactions are. But this is just a little analogy, if you like, about a mindful snack. And I've put all of those. So it's really stop, okay, notice what's going on, accept where you are, be curious, and also kindness. And that kindness, obviously, most importantly, has to be to yourself. Okay. But it's really, really important that we take some time out. We're aware if the indicators are at a maximum level. I don't think they always go to maximum straight away. I think there's certainly a build up, and it's a culmination, and rather than you getting to a point where you may burn out or become completely exhausted, our bodies have a great way of telling us when things aren't okay, and maybe you're internalizing it. It's often in my tummy, if something's not sitting well with me, or if I'm feeling stressed out, that's where it tends to come on me. But it's really, knowledge is power. You must be aware of your certain surroundings, acceptance about where you are. It's okay. not to be okay. It's okay to ask for support. It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to reach out if that's what you need. You need to do. And there is a catalogue of resources and assistance for everyone. But most importantly, it's to create for you that work-life balance. Find what your release is. For me, it's meditation. I love to sing. I love to act. I love that creative side that sometimes we don't always get in our professional job. Certainly, as myself, as a lawyer, you sometimes feel like you're fighting everybody off, but that's obviously how you're trained. You're trained to look at all of the weaknesses, all of the weaknesses and pros and cons in relation to particular cases. But it's just important to show your vulnerability, show your authentic self, and tap into that. Tap into that even in the office, also where you're maybe interacting or things aren't always so serious. We're under real pressures at time, and we're under time pressures. And obviously pressures with clients to make sure that everything is achieved to the best possible place. But unless you have any questions, folks, that's my presentation. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you so much, Sinead. I certainly find that really useful. There's lots of practical tips there for me to take away personally. There's a couple of questions I have for you. As I was listening to you, I can totally resonate with some of the situations that you found yourself in, or some of the things that you said. So you said at the very, very start, you're a bit of a perfectionist, which I can certainly resonate with, and I'm sure many can. As a professional, I think it's sometimes in our nature to be like that. Yeah. How do you deal, or how could I deal with that perfectionism? And is there a way? Because that's probably the cause of a lot of stress.
Of course, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing being being a perfectionist too. But it's about doing, ensuring that you do your best. And if you need assistance in that, if you need to reach out, if you need to ask someone else to for help in relation to that, well, do that. I think sometimes when you are a perfectionist, it doesn't matter how long something will take you. It has to be right, and it has to be this. But it's also just about identifying, okay, is this something that I need help with? Do I need further assistance in relation to it? And I think and I did touch on this. It's tough in our jobs where there's no room for error. If there's any error at all, where you can be criticized or you can be sued, so it's just really about being aware, being aware of that, and aware of what your best is, and if you need assistance, you simply ask.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. It's the asking for help. And you've pointed to so many different, there's literature out there. Dee showed us all the helpful resources that's there for chartered accountants as well. And it's, how do you know when you've reached that point where you need to ask for the help, rather than just having a one-off moment, or when should you reach out?
Certainly for me, you're looking at your own health. I indicated, Claire, about things manifesting themselves maybe in your body, but certainly if your sleep's interrupted, if you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, you're not resting well, and you're worrying, and when I talk about those particular thought processes, and that's being interrupted, and then you're not being productive in your professional setting, well then I would say you do need to ask for help. And obviously lots of that may be but lots of that may be if you you may need to go to a doctor, get your bloods tested, ensure that everything else is all clear. But certainly it's about knowing it's okay to ask for help. I think everybody, this is my philosophy, I think everyone should have therapy, and everyone should be a waitress or a bar person for a period of time, you know, so they ensure that they're nice and kind to people. But you know, it's okay. It's okay, and it's okay not to be okay. And like anything, you know, you educate yourself and that, okay, why am I, what's going on here? And I think that was a big thing for me, you know, that I just felt that I was really on my, you know, own, and I was, you know, at the pinnacle of my career, and here I am with little twins and not really knowing what to do. It was like a total avalanche, you know. But now looking back on that, you know, lots of people are like that. You know, you could have stepped back maybe in a different way, or you know, it's knowing what those wee indicators are, that you're not going to 10, that you're actually going, okay, something's wrong with my tummy, something's wrong here. I need to change some things, you know, I need to change what I'm doing. And lots of people think, you know, you need to sleep. If you sleep and are able to switch off completely and find some form of release, well, then that has, you know, positive chemicals going into your brain, which is much better for you, and you know, you're a lot more positive and a lot more rested, you know.
Yeah, no, funny, actually, we've just got a question come in there, and it's, how can you switch off after a period of intense work and stress? You know, I suppose in our roles as professionals, we are deadline driven. We are working to a goal, and sometimes, you know, you do go through long periods of time where your stress levels are very high. What are your tips for switching off?
Certainly, I love meditation. I am like the biggest advocate of meditation, and really because, you know, I didn't really discover this until my 30s, you know, at all. I kind of think, I look back and I'm like, why didn't I discover this in my 20s? But meditation is something. So when I talked to you about the prefrontal cortex, you know, and how that, if you're stressed out all the time and you're working to that, it thickens that. But I just find it, you know, a complete way of completely switching off and just getting myself back to being grounded, if I say it in those terms, but also just being. Just being in, like, I know that might sound a bit wacky, but in the present moment. For me personally, I do a lot of acting, I do a lot of singing, and one thing I would have found, even like with singing and expressing yourself, is that I would have worried previously whenever I was performing, but through mindfulness, I find that has really helped. Even to get me into a space where you're relaxed, just do stuff that you really like. That might be running, it might be putting on Peaky Blinders is something that I need to watch, you know, just something, whatever it is that you're able to recharge and release and not think about it. You've done your office stuff for the day, and you've ticked all your boxes, you're out of there. It's about finding things that are good for you. I also yoga. I just love yoga. It was amazing.
And I find actually sometimes I
have a glass of wine or a gin good as well, you know.
That certainly helps. But I do find myself sometimes, you know, you go home and you sit on the sofa, and I find myself scrolling through social media, and I'm not sure that helps either. What are your opinions around that kind of side of things?
I think, you know, well, certainly I'm not the best at social media. I'm really not, and that's maybe where my stress level sometimes, whenever you put something up and then you're looking at the notifications and you're looking. I think if you have, you know, certain intentions on social media, so if you're on there, you know, to read an article or to do, you know, do something, but set your screen time, you know, on a daily basis. Sometimes I used to look at it, be like, you know, on a week it was like 13 hours or something, you know, it was just crazy. But it's really important just to switch off that. Obviously, we're completely accessible these days. Somebody sends us a WhatsApp and they expect an instant response, and it's just not how it should be. You don't have to respond to anything. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to answer it. You make yourself available. You have your own agenda and your own timetable, and it's a bit like even you know, in my office work, you know, I would ensure that I do my calls between, you know, 4 and 5, and that's kind of my set time. So you're not kind of chopping and changing things, or, you know, jumping from one thing to the other, that you're allowing yourself time to just allowing yourself time to create your own agenda, and even have a wee time slot like you would, with the kids' comprehensions at this time, literacy. You have your own time if you want to just mong out and go on social media and see what's happening, then you can do that too.
I think you're very right. I think, we've all got work phones now and emails throughout the whole day, and you have that feeling that you need to respond instantly and urgently, and that puts pressure on you and doesn't generate great feelings sometimes when you're sitting in the evening trying to switch off. So maybe it is just, I've seen celebrities and other people do it, they say I'm switching my phone off and putting it in a drawer for the evening because I need to switch off.
What I often do now, Claire, even with emails, even if I do respond, or want to respond, I'll just put it in my draft. So if you're in the flow and you're answering, in your head and you want to do that, put it in a draft, and then I'll just send it first thing in the morning. So that, if you make yourself available for everybody, then everyone wants you to be available. If you don't make yourself available to everyone, or this doesn't suit me, that's it. But it obviously depends on your own little patterns. I know certainly for me, sometimes I would go and then burn. That seems to be, so you're kind of, I've been working on that for a number of years now, where you just keep going on this treadmill, and then you completely crash, when actually there just needs to be this, steadiness, rather than getting, completely stressed and then burning out.
Okay, yeah, we've got another question here. Do you have any specific mindfulness books that you could recommend?
Yes, I can pop some in. I don't know if they're Belfast based. There is there's I did a wee course with Bridging Rhea. She's fabulous. But there is a big massive one, John Cabot-Singh. It's quite large. But I'll put through a few little recommendations of particular mindfulness ones. I know Bridging runs mindfulness courses in Belfast. She runs little workshops on on a Sunday, sometimes a Wednesday night, just close to the Albert Clock. There is where I did it, but I'll put those little details in and I'll have a little link. But I find that so beneficial. It was an 8-week course, and you just went for an hour every Wednesday night, 2 hours really.
But we'll put all this stuff up onto our website, with a video and stuff. We can put in some links to some of the useful materials that you can recommend.
Sure. There's another really helpful website, which is mind.org, and it's mymind.org, and I find some fabulous resources on there as well. But certainly like guided meditations. YouTube is fabulous. The Honest Guys. I'll do you a little list, and you can have those just to take away. And it's all free. It's all free resources, and some amazing podcasts as well. So
I have another question in here about how can you deal with a manager who's maybe unreasonable, gives unrealistic deadlines, they feel victimized, that they don't have like the same deadlines as someone else, causing stress. How would you deal with that?
See, John speak probably with my different maybe head on, but there obviously may be issues there with that, and it's really about speaking up, owning it, owning it, being aware, yourself, if you're feeling that targets are unrealistic, and it's okay to say, it's okay, like this isn't working for me. I need some help in relation to it, and voice that out, to make sure that you're not your own health isn't being jeopardized in relation to it. And I guess maybe just on another level, if I go back to how we react to it, or sometimes everyone's different, and everyone's different how they manage people and how they express themselves, but it's also very important to ensure that we're not reacting in a particular way, just to look at that. This is what needs to be done. You maybe worrying about that.
Okay.
That helps.
Final question, I think, from me today. Sorry, Sinead, I've been coming at you this afternoon.
You're all right. You're all right.
I think sometimes, we can be our own worst enemy, and I think when disaster struck, we've made a mistake, your whole world comes crumbling down. A big cause of stress for many, probably. but how should we respond better to failure when we've made a mistake?
Fail once, fail again, and fail better. So like some of the most successful people in the world have, you know, failure is obviously a step to success. In my eyes, no matter what we do, everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer of it. And you know, you're always kind of asking yourself, okay, what's the lesson here? What's the lesson that I have to learn in order to grow, in order to move forward, in order to ensure that this doesn't happen again? Because it's all a learning experience, isn't it? And sometimes we do make mistakes, but you know, you can see opportunities from that as well. And it's really, you know, the glass is always half full, half empty. If you have that kind of you know, attitude and positivity, you know, maybe it's not just because you've maybe failed at something, that there is an opportunity in that, and you can learn from it. And I actually think it's an essential step to making you a bit more determined, a little bit more grit, and you'll know for again then not to do whatever it is. But I do certainly think some of the most successful people in the world have failed miserably and come back bigger and better and stronger than ever, which is the most important thing.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Sinead, for your time today and those insights. I found it really valuable, and I hope everybody else on the call did too. Keep an eye out for it coming up onto the website, and hopefully rewatch this. Everybody can rewatch this video and get some of the useful resources that you've pointed out. Thank you also to Dee for coming on to us as well, just to show us some of the support that's available from Chartered Accountants. It's a very supportive institute that we have, and do go on and check out that new webpage and see if there's anything there that could be of use to you. And thank you, of course, to Van Rath for your continued support and sponsorship of this event. Please do keep an eye out for the webinars coming up next. And I suppose happy Friday, everyone, and have a great weekend.
Lovely. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for having me.